And this concept of liquidity specifically, given the way that proprietary capital is structured, hedge funds are structured, people like Citadel, Jump, et cetera, their businesses are structured, the cost of capital is immensely high, which means that getting liquidity is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. And usually I find that to be the biggest cost or kind of case for any DeFi-based application.
Hey everyone, Crypto Setups, the podcast, is back with the first episode featuring Cooper from Injective Labs. Today we're going to talk through everything about Injective, so if you don't know much about the chain, we're going to deep dive into what Injective's about, how the shared liquidity works on chain, some of the burn functionality, and everything Injective has going on, including some of the applications that are currently on their mainnet and what you can do on Injective. So if you are after a well-rounded summary about Injective, this episode is for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Crypto Setups podcast. And today I have Cooper with me from Injective Labs. Cooper, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm super happy to be here with you today, Fez, and get into, all different, subjects, topics, and explain to more of your viewers and your community what kind of Injective is.
Excellent. So you know what? We're going to dive right in because I've explored Injective over and over again. Super excited about all the dApps and things that are going on in the ecosystem. But at the start, I want to come back to the blockchain. Like, what is Injective and how does it work? Like, what's Injective's core goals
Yeah,
as a
great
blockchain?
question. So, Injective is, it might be helpful to take you back all the way to kind of the start of Injective. Injective was initially founded and incubated as one of the first ever Binance incubator, kind of Binance Labs projects. And really the vision then was to be a decentralized Binance. So the team, who was working with, parts of the initial kind of founding team of Polygon, as well as others, from a technical perspective, decided to take the Cosmos SDK and build essentially an app chain, highly customized and highly performant and specialized for finance and specifically trading based applications. So the team actually invented the concept of something called frequent batch auctions, or you can, commonly referred to as FBA, in addition to, permissioning the chain such that you could upload different forms of markets to the chain, but also that, the concept that no, PFP will ever be, kind of competing for block space at any point, or, kind of only trading based kind of transactions and specifically finance based specifically kind of applications could flourish in this environment. So at that point, it was more of a point and click DEX where a user could take any form of ERC20 asset, bridge it through a gravity bridge over to Injective, and trade it with an order book experience and seamless liquidity on a CLOB, right? Because ERC20 assets back 4, 5, 6 years ago were, the front running slippage, all these different types of things in Uniswap V2 pools that we all experienced. For anybody listening that has been part of the crypto kind of ecosystem for some time. So obviously that vision really developed, right to when I joined the team about 2 years ago. And the team raised their last round of capital from, many big names that you've seen, from Jump to Brevin Howard to Mark Cuban, et cetera. And the vision expanded quite a bit when the team enacted CosmWasm smart contract architecture on the app chain, and really pivoted from being this, one focused Injective Pro front end to being a layer one blockchain optimized and specialized for finance based applications, with this central shared liquidity hub sitting there in the middle of the stack. And it solves quite a bit, quite a few problems that we see across different ecosystems, which I'm super excited about, which I can get into, across the rest of this call. But to answer really the initial question, what is Injective? Injective is a hyper-focused layer one blockchain specialized for finance-based applications. And we have over 55 applications currently live, a ton of incredible founders, and a great community of both, retail and normal community folks, all the way to very large institutions currently using the stack in several different ways.
Okay, cool. So yeah, very financial focus, as you said. And one of the things I noticed, like block time wise, it's incredibly fast, like sub-second block times.
Yeah, I mean, I get an update from the dev team almost every month. It feels like that they keep finding ways to make the chain more performant and quicker. They're shipping around the clock. Last time I looked, it was between 800 and 600 milliseconds.
Oh wow, yeah.
We were producing blocks, and from a finance perspective, right? The fact that I'd showed up to this world of crypto, and you have different forms of consensus mechanisms that are taking anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes to
Mm,
finalize is just something that was never going to fly in finance, and it's something that we still believe we can get better at every single day. And we need to keep continuing to iterate, and keep pushing different forms of hardware and software and different you need this distributed ledger technology, but we also need that same web 2 product experience to really pivot over and bring over a lot of those institutions into our financial world of kind of web 3.
yeah. Okay. And you mentioned it was on the Cosmos stack. So what is different? What sets it apart from the general Cosmos chains that are out there?
Yeah, great question. And previous to joining the team, I came from kind of the Solana ecosystem myself, so I
Oh,
was not so familiar with the concept of Cosmos. And I would like to think of it as kind of more of this kind of framework that allows you to seamlessly optimize different components of the stack when building your own chain, right? I think that people like to think of all these different quote unquote Cosmos chains as similar. They're not at all, right? They're all different individual layer one blockchains. The same way you think about Polygon, Avalanche, and Solana next to one another is the same way that all these Cosmos chains interoperate. However, they just have an added benefit of something called IPC, that
mm,
allows you to transfer messages and assets as well. So I think the team, given the fact that they were working and taking inspiration from projects like Polygon, who drew a lot of things from the Cosmos SDK and others, they optimized the stack and built a layer one. And also, to add on to that, why kind of this SDK that people are familiar with, we see very tons of incredible mindshare building great L1s. Not to name specific names here, but things that they're building their own languages from scratch. The
mm.
learning curve is so significant to onboard that new developer community there. It's super important to know and go with something that's more mainstream, for a lot of that mind share within our industry.
No, I agree. I think that is a big hurdle. I've seen a lot of new chains, L1s coming up. If they're using a new stack, it's a complete new game to get devs to go, okay, how do you build? And it's a whole learning process. Whereas at least when you're using similar EVM or the Cosmos stack, if you built there, you're kind of already familiar with how to get started and how it works. So uh,
I think,
couldn't agree more.
by the way, with what you just noted, I think you hit something on the head, for the way that we think about the world. So, anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
is there?
So uh, one other part that, and I'm asking a lot of questions that I've seen and I've wanted answers to, so I'm going down that path. It's the Cosmos SDK stack. However, there is a bit of EVM compatibility support. What exactly is does Injective support on the EVM layer?
Yeah. You're asking a lot of incredible questions, Fez, and sadly, I cannot, um, you know, go too deep. I mean, not so technical. Maybe we might have some different things coming. We'll see,
High
right?
level.
In terms of what's potentially possible, but in terms of what's live, yeah. So Injective was the first ever chain that was built with the Cosmos SDK, or this form of framework, that did a ton of custom work to enable EIP 712 signing. Which essentially means that every single injective address is mapped directly to an Ethereum mainnet address. And essentially, you can use your MetaMask seamlessly across the injective network. We found that, based off that initial story of injective I told you, incredibly important as a core piece of the user and product experience, such that there's no clunky aspect of having to download a new wallet, a new widget,
Mm,
use the same wallet you're utilizing on ETH mainnet, but just come over, bridge your assets, and have a much better product experience.
yeah.
And that has been a huge piece of a lot of our community, and that building piece. In addition, I think it's public that we've launched a roll up, which we have several dApps, active users on, and has really proven as an incredible playground environment for the EVM mindshare across the kind of different EVM kind of developer ecosystem, or Ethereum developer ecosystem, or Ethereum virtual machine developer ecosystem, I should have said. And with that being the case, we partnered with a team called Caldera, who's absolutely incredible. The work that both Matt and James are doing over on that end is great. And we launched this EVM, in EVM based roll up, where essentially you can bridge in any assets from other EVMs via layer 0, and then you can seamlessly bridge and transfer different assets and interoperate with the Injective L1 via Hyperlane. And that has been a huge unlock, right? Because based off of that, and I think a lot of other exciting things to come that I can't speak to in terms of how these things will, work together long term. But with that being the case, on the in EVM, we've realized, right, on a high level, and specifically from a business and marketing perspective, as you noted, you have this incredible mind share, I would say personally, around kind of the Cosmos ecosystem, the Solana ecosystem, but mostly around this EVM ecosystem. I'd probably say, a huge percentage or portion of the existing Web3 developer stack is surrounding that kind of, virtual machine. And with that being the case, we thought it was huge to offer an environment within our community that those different types of applications could get some interoperability and some access to things like shared liquidity and kind of, what is going on within our broader financial ecosystem.
Okay, so the in-VM is more, are you saying it's a layer 2 basically on top of Injective? So secured by Injective, kind of same properties as layer 2, and devs can deploy Solidity contracts in that environment, but it still is able to share their unified liquidity, which we're going to touch on. You've mentioned this a couple of times, and I want to dedicate a whole section to dig deep into that. But at a high level, this is how the EVM instance works.
Totally. Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see what occurs really, again, right. Can't share too much there, in the future. Right. And again, right. I'm not very technical myself. I come from more of a business background, but to answer your question directly, yes, you can take Solidity based contracts, deploy them, and then interop with the native L1 via a message passing, called Hyperlane. Incredible team at Hyperlane. They're doing a lot of great stuff in terms of message transfer, asset transfer, et cetera. So not quite atomic, but really damn close.
Yeah. Okay. No, excellent to hear. So great. We've covered, I think that's a good basis of what Injective is as a core chain and some of the stacks it covers. Is there any other stack in particular it also enables? At the moment, it's the Cosmos SDK stack. You've got an EVM environment that builders can build on and connect to other chains with. Is there anything else we're missing?
As of that, like in terms of that context, that's all that's currently live and in production on mainnet.
Okay.
There's again, right? You know what I mean?
There's stuff coming, is what I'm hearing. Yeah,
Yes,
love it.
yes, yeah. But sadly, based off my technical background, I think kind of I don't think that I'm the best to speak to where things stand in that timeline specifically.
Yeah. No, totally understand. Okay, I think that's a great summary. Now, just recently, well, I've seen record shipping in Injective as well, right? Stuff's always shipping. Just like 2-3 months ago, a crazy update shipped for mainnet, but then 2 weeks ago, another new update, 3.0. Can you tell us a little bit about what the latest update to the mainnet, Injective's mainnet, is and what it has enabled?
Yeah, 100%. So, kind of the question really is, what is Injective 3.0?
Yes.
Yeah. So on a high level, and this gets, I think, missed by many folks, and personally, it's my favorite part of the Injective protocol, the way it's currently designed. So what occurs on the chain is that there are fees, given that the fact that there's an exchange module that sits at the middle of the chain. So essentially, think of for folks that don't totally understand the stack. I came from the Solana ecosystem, or let's say the Ethereum ecosystem. Let's assume Ethereum had Uniswap or Injective's nothing similar, or essential limit order book, different mechanism, but you take this exchange and you build it natively into the chain such that it's one uniform protocol. And whenever there's different types of transactions or swaps within that different form of protocol, there are fees that are generated. The same way there are fees on Uniswap, or there are fees on the New York Stock Exchange, or there are fees on Binance, et cetera. I think that, more of a New York Stock Exchange Binance is probably, a better representation of the architecture. And with that being the case, we take all of those fees on a weekly basis and we send them to a pot. And we have an auction an English auction on a 7-day basis where users can come and they can bid with their INJ. So currently right now, I was looking at it today, there's about $385,000 worth of USDT in fees over the past 7 days. It's about 10,000 INJ. There's a little bit of ETH in there. Altogether, it equals about notional, let's say 587,000. Some user will come tomorrow during this English auction and they'll say, hey, we're going to bid up to $586,000 worth of INJ. They'll send it to a burn. They then, obviously, right, can do whatever. And then those tokens are burned from circulation, obviously. And that's kind of the value accrual or revenue generation that this layer one really provides. And given the fact that we're a finance-based chain, a finance-based ecosystem with exchange at our core, we believe that asset transfer, asset swaps, all these different types of things, and the different use cases that will be built on top of Injective outside of just taker fees will continue to amount as the network continues to grow, and as we continue to bring new applications online. So that is really the core mechanism. If you don't have any additional questions there, Fez, happy to really answer them. But then for 3.0, what changed? That really had existed since the start of Injective. But now the broader concept is the 55 plus applications and growing, and we have some of the best founders across the entire crypto ecosystem, such as we can get into it on the balance and icon side, can decide to take different aspects of their DApp revenue or DApp protocol and contribute them to the Injective burn. And we have a massive community kind of surrounding a lot of the different teams that get users from our initial community. We have a lot of those different teams directing different forms of INJ into the pool. So it essentially opened up the opportunity from just the singular exchange module to all future modules, plus all different ecosystem applications to seamlessly direct fees to one singular auction.
Okay. Yep. So I think maybe I'm going to jump a little bit since we're talking a lot about the module, particularly to do with liquidity. So how does this actually work? Let's talk about what this liquidity module is. So as you mentioned, the core chain has a kind of liquidity component that any application can tap into for fees. I guess they have to pay a premium, and I'm guessing in some way, right? Like if they use that liquidity, they have to share a portion of the fees the liquidity generates back to that unified liquidity pool. Have I got this right, or could you give me more context around what the shared liquidity model is exactly?
Yeah, you're totally spot on. We actually literally, as of this week, decreased taker fees all the way down to 5 bips for the essentially a non-API or non-relayer. And right now, the retail taker fee rate is 10 bips on Binance, right? So we to think that we have lowest fees across any different form of framework, and our kind of architecture makes us kind of the best place to come to set up your different form of infrastructure on the fee side. Just a quick note that I like to include in terms of some of the work that we're doing right now. To answer your question surrounding the architecture, so we have this exchange module. It's a central limit order book. And essentially what is occurring under the hood is such that there's literally a living exchange where market makers and institutional liquidity providers tap in via API and SDK, and they place orders on a bid-ask spread, similar to the way they do on, again, back to the New York Stock Exchange. But the difference here is that any application or any front end, which we refer to as a relayer, can seamlessly build their front end on top of this liquidity. So there's a proof of product that we've also built at Injective Labs called Helix. You can go check out helixapp.com at any point. Helix is essentially a relayer to this exchange module. And essentially, why does this make this so exciting? Let's assume that, hey, I'm Cooper. I want to launch a crypto exchange, and I want to do it on Solana. If I want to do it on Solana, or let's say I want to do it on Avalanche, or any major chain that could come to your mind, I would have to go and build smart contracts, or go and find different smart contracts from XYZ that were created from likely random repos, etc. piece together or write from scratch my own exchange logic, exchange matching engine, different like there's so many different aspects that
Mm.
go into building exchange that I didn't even have to deal with for joining the team post it being built. But the biggest piece that I see is this concept of liquidity. And really, what does that mean, right? It's a word that gets thrown around so often, specifically in crypto. It means that when I show up and I want to make a $5 million trade, there's somebody on the other end and the receiving end of that $5 million trade that will match me at my expected price. So let's say I show up and say, hey, I want $5 million worth of SOL right now at 150 bucks. There's someone there that says, hey, here's 100, for your USDT, here's, XYZ SOL.
Yep.
And that concept from the broader concept of exchanges is essentially bring the liquidity and you'll bring the takers, and it's kind of this chicken and egg concept. And this concept of liquidity specifically, given the way that proprietary capital is structured, hedge funds are structured, people like Citadel, Jump, et cetera, their businesses are structured. The cost of capital is immensely high, which means that getting liquidity is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. And usually I find that to be the biggest cost or kind of case for any DeFi based application essentially going to die. Because they have to give away such a massive economic incentive to drive initial liquidity. Because let's assume I'm a user, I'm not going to go use your application if I can't onboard $500 and get good price action on it.
Yep.
I'm only going to onboard and use. So it's a chicken and egg problem.
Yep.
So essentially, we've seen over 6 or 8 different front ends come on to Injective and build incredible user experiences utilizing this liquidity. That's essentially like you can build your own exchange in literally a couple days. It's really cool. And then your job is really to go and then onboard users, and you can receive back those relayer fees, which are 40% of the total taker fee. So the taker fee is 5 bips. 40% of that gets kicked back to you as the relayer. So that's the concept of just building a vanilla exchange. Where it gets much more interesting is this broader concept, such as Balanced or Icon, what you guys are doing with that, or you're a money market protocol, you're an AMM, you're any of these different finance-based applications. You now can process liquidations on the central limit order book. You can do all different, you're an NFT marketplace. You can come over and swap to get whatever asset you prospectively need. It's essentially, this core module that can seamlessly allow for any application. What we've seen, even exterior bridges that are bridging and connecting a bunch of different chains, use Injective as their central hub and spoke, essentially, to make swaps. So, hey, I have USDC on this chain. I want to get Polygon or Matic or Paul, whatever the new token is, on this chain. I'm going to come to Injective, make the swap, transfer it out, and bridge through Wormhole. So that hopefully that was a very long answer, but try to break it down best as possible.
No, that's great. I want to just make sure I've got it. So on one aspect, it's the market makers and things. You'll have enabled an easy way for them to essentially plant their, capital, right? On whatever it may be, stables and whatever tokens.
Just to follow up on that, Fez, it's not necessarily a seamless path for them. It's what our team has been doing for the past 4 years on the development, research, the amount of resources we've had to put into some of these teams making these integrations, et cetera. And now developers get to come and take advantage of an institutional liquidity provider at essentially no cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So traditionally, like someone will go and set up for Binance, or an app will build it for itself, and then that's their unique feature. What you'll have done is built that architecture to make it easy for these third parties to come and supply the liquidity. That way they're making money, but you've enabled other players to then build on top to use the same liquidity that is provided by the same market makers. So they're not duplicating liquidity in every protocol. You're tapping into this unified liquidity. And obviously, as you mentioned, like a lot of people are now starting to play with it in different ways, where using it as a hub to swap assets, which is then delivering revenue. And this is the final part. So part of this, providing this service, Injective, the chain, or what takes a fee? Where does the fee mechanism take in, apart from the liquidity providers and stuff getting their fees?
Totally.
Where's the other fee?
Fully decentralized, fully on chain. Literally the exchange module will take a fee. Let's say, assume, right? I submit a $1 order, five
Mhm.
bips or 5 basis points of that are going to go and be sent to this on-chain essentially auction module that gets
Yep.
auctioned at the end of 7 days, and performs that revenue generation or yield kind of uh,
Yeah.
value accrual mechanism.
Okay, so great. I think that's liquidity covered. We can jump onto the auction piece. So, as you said, they use it. This is where the auction, what is up for auction, comes from. It's the fees, and those fees can be, as you said, if it's injective, whatever's generating revenue, right? So, if it's injective and USDT, there's fees depending on either side of the trade taken in those tokens, and then whatever other assets are supported. Is it the auction for all the assets, or is there a limited amount of assets that are supported through the auction process?
No, so that's a huge part of INJ 3.0 was being able to enable all different forms of assets from all different types of applications. So essentially creating an incredibly kind of, you know, essentially architecture framework such that anybody can now contribute to this auction platform. Because previously it was really only based off of the markets that were on chain on both the spot and perp side. And many of those spot and perps markets are denominated in USDT. So many of the fees are taken in USDT, and you'll still see the majority of fees are USDT based. However, it could be ETH, it could be any form of these real world assets. It could be an unlimited amount of different forms of tokens in that basket.
And if it's like ETH and any other asset, let's just say, how's the process work? Is it you bid on it with injective tokens, or
Yep.
so? Yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's
So
going on. So it's an English auction. It
yeah.
occurs once a week, and
Yep.
essentially you look at the pot, right? And it says, you say there's one ETH in here, there's 10 USDT, there's three INJ, there's all this stuff in here. Notional, that's all worth about $1,000 if I were to go and sell it right now. So I will take, likely in theory, probably somewhere around just under $1,000 worth of INJ to bid, and essentially then the user, in no way injective or any aspect of the protocol, the user is electing to then take those INJ, send them to a burn, and receive back that pot of value.
Okay. Great. That's a full rounded summary of everything that happens and how the liquidity plays a part in this process as well. So
And just a couple of quick stats on this
yeah.
past Sunday, or I believe the previous past Sunday. In the past 10 days, there was a day where the injective liquidity or exchange module did $267 million in notional USD volume in a singular 24-hour period. So I've been told that it didn't break any records relative to a few early days back, way back. However, there's a significant amount of traction, still occurring, across the
Yeah.
exchange module.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And at the one thing that drives a lot of that is volatility as well, right? Like,
Not on.
yeah. So, and this is the other thing. If you have liquidity, uh, and then there's volatility, the revenue just comes in because people are going to make money through arbing or whatever the various processes are. But there's always money to be made there, and the liquidity providers tend to get the brunt of it because
You're spot
that's
on. You
yeah.
know how these capital markets work very well, Fed.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, cool. So that's 3.0. I think we covered quite a lot there. But one other feature that I've read a couple of lines about is with the 3.0 update, there's been a particular module focused around RWAs. Could you shed some light on what that is exactly, how it works?
Of course, yeah, it's super exciting, and it's something that you'll see a lot more coming in the news from Injective moving forward. So, as we're aligned for obviously finance-based applications and all these different forms of things, we work with many of the leading institutions across the board to essentially aid them and provide them with different software and technology solutions to build their on-chain applications. And when doing so over the past 6, 12, 18 months, we're often met with the same feedback over and over again from many of these, traditional, brand name, house name, financial firms. And it's that, hey guys, this concept of crypto and decentralization and distributed ledger and different forms of cutting cost and et cetera is exactly what we want to hear. However, this concept that I could be trading with somebody, in some not kosher or not okay country, I have no idea who my counterparty is. I don't know if they're audited. I don't know if they're kosher in any way, shape, or form. Does not fly with many of those folks, and it's essentially, from our kind of viewpoint, likely not going to serve those types of products are not going to service that type of institutional client. So what we've done at Injective Labs is essentially create one of the first ever permission modules such that a user can fully permission a token on chain and enable it to an on-chain or off-chain allow list such that here are 20 addresses. We have KYC, KYB, or we've partnered with this KYC, KYB partner. And here are the 15 addresses of holders that can hold this token.
Mm.
So if I say, hey, Fez, I'm going to send you this token and you're on the allow list, I can seamlessly send it to you. However, if I say, hey, I'm going to send it to this guy over here and he's not on the allow list, he will not be able to receive that token.
Mm.
And that's something that you see a lot of these different chains roll it out over the past 6 months. I think we're right, on the really kind of on the side of innovation there. And then the next piece with that, being said, is that we also, in this kind of theme of exchanges and different forms of liquidity, et cetera, we also permission a market. So essentially only permissioned addresses can trade a prospective market themselves. So that you're never not matching someone,
Mm.
that it could be coming from, something that, isn't within your domain.
Yeah. It also would help a lot with being compliant and things like that, right? Because
So
yeah.
this is literally, it's hard to phrase. I'm in no way, shape, or form a lawyer or anything of that nature, right? However, I would say that many of these products are different forms of compliance oriented, and making sure that, essentially, right, we're an open source software company. We want to serve all different types of
Mhm.
customers, and serve all different types of products to build, a better financial world. And we saw a big piece of that being these different forms of compliance rails as well.
Cool. Okay. Has that seen with the release of these modules influx of new RWA protocols or assets come on chain?
Yeah. So it's funny you asked that question. When you release these more open source types of modules, literally a week later, you turn around and there's 5 new applications that are live.
Hmm.
With these quote unquote institutions, and it's such a broad term that we talk about internally, because it means so many different things. These things take time. So
Hmm.
my point here is that there are several things in the works, and again, I think you'll see some stuff very soon.
Hmm.
We've announced quite a few things, I think, already. You can check our blogs, stay up to date. But I'm very excited for a lot of the things that are coming in the future. Yeah, again, yes, we announced a partnership, collaboration publicly with both Ondo, Mountain Protocol, but many other things coming down the path as well surrounding kind of these different forms of permission tokens.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Great. I think for the final part, because we've been talking a while now, one thing I like to do, like, I wish when I go to a new chain, I want to know where to go. Usually, chains have an ecosystem page, which is great sometimes. But for Injective, like, since listeners have tuned in, if you're a first time user, you've got your wallet, you kind of generally know what you're doing. What are some of the applications you would recommend going to check out that are on Injective? Helix is obviously by default, you got to go there and experience it. What else? What else have we got on Injective?
100%. I love it. Putting me on the spot in terms of calling out some of the good folks. Awesome stuff. So the general hub of the Injective ecosystem is the Injective Hub itself.
Oh
So if you
yes.
literally Google the Injective Hub, it's a place where you can go, you can seamlessly stake your assets and provide security and earn, a rate for doing so, which is, something that we see most kind of our beginner, not beginner or kind of, I mean, all different types of profiles of users are staking, right? Including myself. However, but we see, very straightforward and a lot of users going and doing that, and securing the network. I think we've seen all the way up to like 60 million INJ staked currently, which is absolutely incredible. So that's thing number one. Then the application, and again, yes, I'm biased. I would say helixapp.com is a great next piece where essentially you can have the full finance experience, everything from, we're doing a lot of cool stuff with trading bots at the moment, that
Mhm.
are available, spot markets, perp markets, different forms of potential, other there's real world asset markets. You can trade precious metals, gold, silver, forex, foreign exchange on chain, different things coming there. And then next, kind of to go to zoom out and just give some awesome friends a shout and go check out their projects across the ecosystem. Hydro is our liquid
Mm.
staking protocol. It's fantastic. They're doing a lot of cool stuff there. Essentially allows you to have the ability to earn that same staking yield, but deploy your assets across the ecosystem. Another great application is exotic markets. They're doing fully on-chain options. They're launching, they're an options protocol that came over from the Solana ecosystem, has been doing a ton of great work and selling out their options on a weekly basis. Um, Next, just to, kind of go through. So I'm super excited for what we're doing with Balance and Icon, which
Yeah.
we'll have to note because I have quite a bit of background. I was letting Elise know earlier today on the side of kind of collateralized debt positions.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool way to loop your exposure across the board. But not to get sidetracked. There's a lot of Dojo Swap is an awesome application. It's an AMM, you can get access to a lot of different, long tail assets, etc. A lot of our community love memes. Talus is an NFT marketplace. They're doing a lot of different, exploration with tokenization at the moment. A lot of cool stuff happening there. Neptune is an awesome lending protocol, money markets
Yeah.
protocol that we're super excited about. And kind of the list, I could go on here
It
for
goes on.
20
Yeah.
minutes, but yes, I think that would be a great starting point.
Okay, excellent. One application I wanted to quiz you a little bit more about was because it's intertwined into from what I understand, it's intertwined into the unified shared liquidity module is Mito. Um,
Yes.
so I found that
Can't
particularly
believe I didn't talk
interesting.
about it because
So
I said I can't believe I didn't talk about it because interestingly, it's something that I oversee quite a bit of,
yeah.
and it's super exciting. But please continue the question.
Well, I actually found it. This is what I was at a conference listening, and Justin was talking about it, and I started putting two and two together because in all the explanations you've given so far, what you've discussed is you've enabled parties through a lot of hard work to deploy their liquidity onto Injective, right? And then third parties can build on top of this to take advantage of that liquidity. But the one component that probably hasn't been enabled yet is how do we also do this for the general user like me? Like if I wanted to supply liquidity, how could I get my liquidity into that shared unified liquidity to benefit from it so that more applications, so my liquidity isn't locked in one application, whereas if I could have it in one place where then tens of 20 different layers and it's generating fees, well, that's a win for me as a user as well, not just the institutions and other larger parties.
You're hitting the nail on the head, Fez.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
So
yes,
yeah, go on. There, that Mito enters the building.
then we enter the building, right? So as you noted just perfectly there, traditionally across things, again, back to the New York Stock Exchange, you have these institutions providing liquidity. You hear of people like Ken Griffin, the list goes on all day, right? Of these different types of market makers or liquidity providers, which are here on Injective as well, right? However, when a team comes to me and says, hey, we want to launch on the Injective share liquidity, or we want to provide liquidity, there's no options for you right now. You have to go and either make some deal to launch your different form of token, et cetera, with them, which are often incredibly expensive, or, they're not going to take your capital, there's no way to take your capital to partake in those activities as well. So there's two different actions, whether you're, potentially like on the token issuer side, or you're on the user side wanting to take part in that. And Mito on a high level is a yield generation platform, but really it's essentially democratizing access to those two things. So let's assume I want to launch my own token. Hey, I don't have enough, money to quote unquote go to one of these large institutions to market make for me. I can go and set up my own vault, which will provide liquidity onto a central limit order book for me. Or on the contrary, I want to provide liquidity and earn some of the spread that these market makers are making. I can now deposit into a vault, and that vault can then, provide liquidity and earn fees for me, as well. So there's a lot of also exciting stuff coming on the Mito side. A lot of different features. There's a launch pad. There many new, different real world asset, products coming alive there. So Very excited to see how Mito continues to expand, but that is currently what's live and what exists.
Cool. So it offers like, as you said, so you can supply if the vaults exist for existing liquidity pairs or tokens, you can users who have the token can use these vaults. And what happens, a percentage of it gets allocated into the order book and shared liquidity piece. But also, like if you're a new project launching a token, you could use that as a way of seeding liquidity and getting distributed. And the best part around this process is because it actually seeds it for the order book. Does it require, what I'm trying to figure out here is, if you're seeding for a new token, do you require a ton of liquidity in the vault, or you can start small and then attract users through rewards?
Yes. So exactly the latter. You can start small and really attract your community to come in and then deposit. So you can instantiate a vault and then, have different forms of incentives on top of that vault, to have users come on and deposit into your vault and grow your community, et cetera. And that's a big aspect of this decentralization aspect. It's your keys, it's your position, and you can come, back and get it anytime you'd like.
Okay, great. I think that's I'm particularly excited about this. Is the function of anyone can create a vault launched yet, or is that
Yeah,
is
permissionless
yeah?
launch just a couple months ago. Anybody can come on and create any of their vaults, and showcase them, and anybody can, deposit into those vaults right thereafter.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, we've covered a lot today, Cooper. Is there anything I haven't hit on? Like, the goal here is I want someone to listen to this and kind of go, "Yep, I know now what Injective's about. I understand the auction, the main unified liquidity components. I understand the core mechanics of it. Um, Good overview of all the applications that are currently, a quick glance at them. Is there anything we've missed out on that we haven't discussed today?"
Fez, I think that we've done a great job. I'm looking at the clock, it's been 40 minutes. I hope I haven't been rambling too much, but
No.
I think that we have quite a bit of content across kind of the ecosystem. I mean, I could go on for days here in terms of why we're excited, but I think, there's so many, our team is so large now. I think we're approaching over 60 at the moment. There's so many different teams, and now there's, the foundation is also, working and growing an incredible team as well at the same time. Point there is that I think we touched most of the major pieces here, and you know, nothing that comes to mind, off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I think we've covered everything. Look, Cooper, I really appreciate you coming on. This will be the relaunch, and excited to have Injective featuring in the first episode since a while back. So, thank you again, everyone listening. Like, share, subscribe, and as always, not financial advice. Just
As always, no way financial advice.
yeah,
It's
yeah. We're
building
just
software and tools such that everyone can live a much more financially free future.
Exactly. And just here from Crypto Setups are trying to educate users on what some of these projects and tools and things are about. So hopefully you got some value from it. Take care, everyone. Thanks again, Cooper.
Thank you, Fez. Really appreciate the time here, guys.